Okay, welcome to AutoCAD 2015. I'm going to give you a brief run through on the user interface. Then we'll be creating the first of two watches. This one is just sort of a trial run to get you sort of to understand how to draw and to modify objects within AutoCAD. The second one, which is the FACO watch, that's the one that will be part of the portfolio. So normal ribbon interface. We have the home tabs, insert, annotate, parametric, etc. You can read these, but basically this is just a whole host of different buttons that do all sorts of different things. So don't get too freaked out by the number of icons we've got. Most of the stuff that we'll be doing will locate around the draw and the modify and the annotation. We'll look at a little bit of layers, and we'll do a little bit of inserting and creating blocks, and we'll look at some properties. Groups we can use as well, and the utilities, the clipboards, all these things are very useful. And there's some little drop downs with these as well, which you can pin into the screen like so. This is the quick access toolbar, so things like create a new document, and as we're on create a new document, if we just look at this, the default document that we want to use is the AutoCAD ISO DWT. A DWT is a DWG template. So a DWG is an AutoCAD drawing. A DWT is an AutoCAD template, which when you launch will turn into an AutoCAD drawing. So AutoCAD ISO DWT. That's not the one we want to use. Some people use that. This is the Imperial template, which means that there's a different scale factor going on regards to the units and the paper. And as far as units go, we will be using millimeters. So if you entered 10, then that would be 10 millimeters. If you think in your head that you're working in meters and you enter 10 for meters, then it's still going to be classed as 10 millimeters. Even if you set the insert units to meters, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that the object that's created will then insert based on a scale of maybe 1,000 times bigger or 1,000 times smaller than the objects that you're working on. And like SketchUp, we'll work on full scale. So you draw everything in model space at full scale. This is the drawing environment, the model environment. And then we have layout, which is very similar to the SketchUp layout type thing. But whereas in SketchUp, it's a second piece of software, in AutoCAD, it's just another part of the same software. But they are two distinct sides. And this thing is a viewport, and this is a link to the model space. If I drew something, for example a circle, and I went to my layout, then you'd see the circle there. If I went to layout 2, then you see the circle slightly bigger. Now the reason is, I'm not quite sure why the reason is, but normally objects are zoomed to the extents of the viewport. For this one, for some reason it's not. If I wanted to move this to the extents or make it as big as the boundaries of the viewport, then I could double click inside the viewport to activate it, and then I could double click my mouse wheel to maximize the objects within that viewport as well. To deactivate the viewport, I'm going to double click outside it like so. This thing here is the drawing that we're working on. So we've got under this tab, if we were to create another drawing, then we can have a whole series of drawings loaded up. So we can have many drawings available to us, and we can swap between one and the other. But this drawing has the model environment and layout 1 and layout 2. So if I wanted to jump to either of those, it's not a bad way to get there. So hover over that and then click back to this environment. Saves you having to go down to the bottom of the screen, which is not a major deal, to be perfectly honest. This thing over in the right hand corner, this is the view cube, and AutoCAD is a fully functioning 3D drawing package. So if I click on a little house, that will take me to a default view, 3D view, and you can extrude polylines and regions and all sorts of different things, but we are primarily going to be using it for 2D. So we're going to be in top view nearly all the time. This thing here is a navigation wheel, so you've got sort of the view bar along here. So zoom extents, pan, orbit, and this thing here, which is a full navigation wheel. You can drag that out and you can orbit around the pivot point. You can center, so wherever I choose to center my object, anywhere on this line, let go of that, and then I'm going to orbit, and it's going to pivot around that point. I can rewind my views through that, so it's quite useful. That's taking me back to the original top view. Let's click back on the top view, and I'll just get out of this by closing it down there. So there's lots of these things to sort of explore. This is the UCS, the user coordinate system. Now we're looking at X and Y. So X is going from left to right and Y is going from bottom to top. That's positive X and positive Y. If I manage to sort of press the wheel down and drag my pan into my drawing, then this is the origin point. So this cursor is sitting at 0, 0. So anything backwards of this origin point is going to be negative X, and everything below this line is going to be negative Y. Okay, if again we looked in 3D, we would see that the Z direction is coming straight at us and going away from us. So positive Z and negative Z. The most important icons, I would say, that we have to contend with are these ones down here. This is the status bar, and we've got something new in 2015, this customization thing, where we can control what we see and what we don't. Now in the university we've got slightly different ones. We'll have things like isometric drafting there and ortho mode there, but seeing as we're not going to be using them for the purposes of these drawing tasks, then we can kind of turn them off if you want. But you could have them all on, and just having them on doesn't necessarily mean to say they're going to work. You also need to make sure that you click on them when they are loaded up onto the status bar. So this status bar is really the one that you need to consider more than anything else. So if you wanted to see the grid, then that's this thing. If you actually want to snap to the grid, so if I was drawing a line at the moment, then it's just going from wherever I want to wherever I want. So click, 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 click to create the line. Hit escape to exit. If I turned on snap mode and started drawing the same thing, then if I wanted to snap it to the middle of one of these boxes, I couldn't. So I'm restricted to the intersections of the grid. Okay, turn off snap mode, and then I'm free to create lines wherever I want. Okay, so that's the difference between snap mode. I'm not going to go through all of these, but this thing really is important. Dynamic input, we need to have that on. We also need to have the polar tracking, and you can click on this and set the angles for which you set track lines. So at the moment it's set for 90, 180, 270 and 0. So if I clicked on the line tool and started somewhere, then I get a line going vertically up, 180, 0 and 270. If I was to change the settings to maybe every 15 degrees, then I'm going to get a track line coming out every 15 degrees, and I can track along these lines and knowing full well that that is an accurate 15 degree angle. Okay, so it's, even though it says sometimes 45 degrees, if I turn this back to 90, then even though that's, I can get that to say 45 degrees, if I click there, and then I do the same thing again, but this time with polar track set to 45 degrees, and click there, and go up 45 degrees. Looks pretty much the same, but you zoom right in, and you will see that the angles are not the same. This is a true 45 degrees, this is not, and it's simply due to the amount of rounding up we have of various units. So I'll hit delete for that, hit delete for that. A couple of other things, selection, so click and let go, and that's windowing. So again, in similar to SketchUp, window that way, crossing window this way. And a new feature which kind of foxes you to start off with, if you click and hold, then it turns into a sort of a fence line selection. Okay, so click and hold, and you'll create this sort of drawing thing, and you go into the existing selection and it'll undo So it's quite useful, I think. Click and drag this the other way and you've got a sort of fenced crossing window. So all very useful stuff. Things that we also might be interested in, if I click on this, selection cycling means that if I've got two objects sitting over them, so turn that on, and if I wanted to see that symbol, if I click there, then there's two possible objects, the circle or the line. So again, this allows me to select these things. And there is a keyboard shortcut for that, but we might as well use these tools as they're there. I don't want to confuse you with too many keyboard shortcuts. And that's our sort of whirlwind tour of the interface of our AutoCAD. So when we come back in a very short period of time, we will be starting to draw the Stolex watch.